The international break may have given us a little bit of a pause, but we're all hoping now that Mother Nature doesn't extend that as the Stags look to keep going. Defeat in our last outing away at Wrexham left us a little bit frustrated because we wanted the game to come thick and fast, but the international break put pay to that. This week, with snow falling across Mansfield and the temperatures dropping like mad, we're hoping that there won't be another delay in terms of the fixtures. Can Magic Mez and his team get the game on Saturday as the Stags look to keep on going with perhaps a change of guard in goal? More of that to come tonight on the Mansfield Matters podcast. Come and have your say on your team. This is a show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Come and join us and have your say. Hello, good evening and welcome to the Mansfield Matters podcast. It's the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Great to have you with us this evening on this Thursday night. It feels like a long time since we did a Mansfield Matters podcast, but a regular one anyway, because, of course, last week, Alan Wilson and I hosted a true legend on the podcast in Matt Green. We'll have a teaser clip or a reminder clip or whatever you want to call it later on in the show for you. And you can go and catch up on that. But of course, we're focusing back on the here and now. And as you may have noticed on screen, those of you who are watching the live version, Alan is alongside me. He's just over there somewhere. But down there, it's not Nick, it's not Cam, it's not Clive, and it's not Jim. We have got, I'm gonna say it, Taras, I'm gonna say it earlier. I'm gonna say Mansfield Matters #1 late substitute this series. You're really answering the call.
I do what I can. Great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me again.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us again this evening. We've got to start, haven't we, by having a quick look back at last Friday night, surely. What a night. It's the longest podcast we've ever done, the longest live stream we've ever done. And it do you know what? It could have continued for another 4 hours, couldn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, we're quality night through and through, Craig. Great to hear some of Greenie's stories. We're great to see Greenie, full stop. because he's always been one of my favourites. He knows that. I think quite a few people know that. Wears the number 10 shirt like I do with pride if ever I played football. Just top bloke.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant man, and many, many stories as well. And Taras, I know, obviously, you weren't in a Mansfield. You weren't a Mansfield resident back when Matt Green was in his 2 spells at the club, but I know you've had a little listen to it, and it's sort of given you a bit of an insight, hasn't it, into what happened in those dark old conference days?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, obviously, being a relatively new, resident to Mansfield and Stag supporter, it was, like I said to you, Craig, it was cool to kind of get an insight into, because, I mean, let's be honest, since I've moved and started supporting Stags, it's been relatively good. So it's kind of neat to get an insight as to where the club's come from a relatively recent times. I've heard a lot, from my dad, what supporting the club was like in the 70s and 80s, and obviously people I sit next to at the ground. But no, it was really good insight from Greeny, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you want to watch that, you can see it on our Facebook page. You can see it on our YouTube channel. And you can, of course, listen to the whole 2 and a bit hours. I think 2.5 hours it ended up being in the end on Spotify. So go and do it. And it's really is a good listen. And if you missed it, we'll give you a little bit of a teaser clip later on. But make sure you've had your tea. That's all I'm going to say. All I'm going to say, Alan Wilson, is you've not looked at a hose pipe in the same way since, have you, since last Friday?
Certainly not. Especially not thinking about Gary Roberts anyway.
Absolutely. We'll leave it there and we'll come back to that later on. Let's turn our attention to the here and now then, Taras, and that is, of course, Mother Nature. It can be a little bit of a horrendous sort of curveball when it comes to November, December time for Mansfield. We've had many games called off, but Mesny's team do a superb job. And I don't know if you'd have seen it earlier, but there was a little bit of a call out on social media. This is an opportunity now for fans to, if they've got the time, to head down to the ground tomorrow, pick up a shovel and all rally together to get a game on, because nobody wants to be twiddling their thumbs on Saturday afternoon, do they? No one's got Christmas shopping to do now.
Sincerely hope not. The elephant in the room is it may not even be the snow that postpones it. It might be the amount of rain we're about to get. So it's just kind of complete opposite of what we've experienced this week. But yeah, hopefully I'm kind of on a coin flip right now as to whether or not the game's going to go on. I think it'll be okay, but when I saw that post earlier, it made me a little bit nervous, but for the call to help, but we'll see.
I think the main thing, Alan, is, there's a good opportunity to get the game on. Nigel Clough will definitely want the game to go ahead. We've been itching to play a game, and with the rain forecast, I know a lot of people say, well, that'll help melt away the snow, but what you have to remember is snow is essentially frozen rain in some respects, isn't it? So if we're having a massive rainfall and we have that on top of the snow, that's almost double the amount of water that's going to go on the pitch. So it's no wonder at all that Mez is putting out an appeal to try and get people to help clear the pitch, because that's the best way of getting the game on, surely.
Yeah, I'm quietly confident, Craig. I think Mez and the gang, and probably all of his helpers, whoever goes down, they know what they're doing. But my only concern was if it still stays icy. I know there's some rain coming. If it still stays icy, it's your health and safety actually in and getting to the stadium. That was my only concern, because with the health and safety, they'll just shut it down straight away if they deem it, inappropriate to get onto, to walk onto the ice. But hopefully the rain will wash all that away. It's sunshiny tomorrow again. Let's get the sun blazing down and try and melt it. And, let's have a good game on Saturday. We're ready.
Absolutely. If you are available tomorrow, if you're not at work or you can spare half an hour or whatever, and you've got a shovel or anything, head down to One Call Stadium and give Mez and his team a helping hand. Let's all rally together and get the game on Saturday afternoon. No points, no loyalty points or anything for doing it, but it's all about club community spirit, and that's what Mansfield Town is all about. We all want to see a game happen on Saturday afternoon, because let's face it, we don't want to be here doing an hour's worth of what's in Craig's bucket, Taras. It's a great feature, but no one needs that, do they?
Well, it's a good thing Mansfield's renowned for its strong sun, so we should be all right. But yeah, I'm quite like Al. I'm quietly confident, but we'll see.
Well avoided in slagging off what's in Craig's bucket, because we all know that we've not played it for a few weeks and it's due to make a comeback. Alan, let's turn our attention, shall we, back to football in action and not buckets or hose pipes. And let's cast our minds back to a few weeks ago. Wrexham away, 1-0 defeat. I had a little watch of the highlights again just to remind myself of what happened earlier on. And in comparison to when we played Wrexham at the back end of last season, the promotion season, and this season, it was one of those games where we walked away from it. I can't even speak tonight. Thinking, you know what, we're very unlucky to lose. We perhaps should have got a point. We maybe could have nicked all three. It's just one of those games.
Definitely. It weren't even a game of 2 hours or anything like that, like the Birmingham when we played them at our place. It's nothing like that. I thought we were the best team by far. I think that even they, hand on heart, would say, we played a better game than they did. They got the goal, and that's just how it goes. I think if we'd have still been there now, Craig, I don't think we'd have scored. It was just one of them days where hitting the bar, hitting the post, chances going thick and fast. Just one of those games where another time, you probably get 3 chances and 3 goals. It's just the way it goes.
There was almost a relaxed attitude from Nigel Clough-Taras after the game, because usually when we lose 1-0, he comes out and he says, well, this decision was wrong, or we should have done this, we should have done that. He was very relaxed after the game, and I think we're starting to see almost a new calmness come over him now.
I think it's just where we're at as a team. I think, watching the Wrexham game, that like Al rightly said, there wasn't much more that the guys could have done. Hit the bar, had a couple penalty appeals. Obviously, I'm sure we'll touch on the injury to Christie, but Scott came in, played really well, and some days things fall your way. Some days they don't. It's not. You just obviously hope on the days where things aren't falling that you're clinical, but it's just tough to be at it. It's 46 league games in a season. You're going to have games like that. It's just a bit frustrating. Again, with who it was against and where it was, and but hey ho, we'll go again. I think we should. If the game is on, it does go ahead on Saturday. I think we should have every confidence in the world to put the wrongs to right and move on. And it's just frustrating that there's been an international break since that last game. But what can you do?
It's an interesting one, Alan, as well, because you look at where we've come and where we sort of sat in the division and things like that as well. And you look at sort of Nigel Clough's relaxed attitude to it post-game, and I don't think there's any pressure on us now. And I think that start which we had in the opening sort of 10, 11 games or so has really given us a good foothold now. And we've got enough confidence within the squad to look at it and go, all right, we're frustrated that we've lost a game, but also it doesn't really matter too much because we've been very much in the game with a few tweaks in the lineup, it has to be said as well, Al.
Yeah, I think the reason why he was so laid back, if you want to put it like that, because of the performance. He knows that they couldn't have done any more, apart from obviously the putting the ball in the net. But the way the Mansfield players are reacting to what Nigel's asking them to do, whether it be off the bench or actually in the starting 11, it's just nothing short of a miracle. It's really good to watch. It's good, the way that they're playing, the way they're playing for each other. And at the end of the day, when we said at the start of the season we wanted 50 points or near enough there, it might not be that many, to be safe. Anything else is a bonus after that. Well, I mean, already we're 13 games in, we're halfway there. So, everything's looking rosy. But, it's these little breaks, sometimes it can stop the momentum. And I think Nigel was right when he said, we could have done with another game on Tuesday night to follow the defeat at Wrexham. It wasn't to be. I think we've got one next Tuesday, haven't we? After Saturday. I think there's another one following Tuesday. So, get back on the horse and let's see how far we can climb this league again.
As always, come and have your say on your team. Anything Mansfield Town related you want to say this evening, get it in the comments now. Jodie's been in touch and says, I didn't get the impression that Nigel was relaxed. I got the impression that he was gently furious the officiating at Hollywood United once again robbed. But he was delighted with the squad performance. I think that's probably where my relaxed sort of viewpoint comes from, because he was pleased with the way and the shift that we put in. We'd hit the bar a couple of times. We had a soft penalty decision. Depends on which angle you look at it. The Lee Gregory one, where he's got a little nudge from behind. Personally, I think he sort of trips over the ball himself. I didn't think it was a pen, but each their own in terms of those opinions. I spoke there, Taras, about a slight change in personnel. Obviously, looking back at the starting lineup at Wrexham, we'll talk about Christy Pym's injury, as you alluded to later on. But one big inclusion in the starting 11 at Wrexham was that of Aidan Flint, which, of course, then meant whether there was a debate of whether or not we would keep the same shape, which we did. And ultimately, Dave moved out to the right-hand side of the back three, which he's not really been playing, because he's been used to playing that central man. And I felt that for a little while, it took a little while for him to adapt to that, because playing right side of a three compared to playing centre of a three is a very, very different game and a very different approach, isn't it?
Yeah, but I wonder if it was kind of a domino effect with Dave. I was going to say Deji. Dave playing where he was just because Maris didn't play, did he? So I don't know if that was kind of the thinking with bringing Flint in, and then obviously putting... it's so hard for me to call him Dave because I would say Deji, but...
when you're on the podcast, my friend, it has to be Dave. Dave and Uncle Stephen.
My apologies. So I just don't know if it was kind of like a forced sort of selection. Not selection, but you know what I mean. Selection in the sense of where he played, just because of the omission. Not omission, but obviously Maris wasn't even in the squad, was he? So, interestingly enough, I've kind of done like a mock team for Saturday, and I don't have Flint in mind. But it depends on, who's available, who's fit. So yeah, maybe that was kind of what was behind the thinking at Wrexham. But just going back to the penalty shouts, I thought Will Evans had one. I thought he had a concrete one where his shirt was being pulled as he was trying to shoot. The Lee Gregory one I wasn't convinced with, but the Will Evans one, he was kind of one-on-one with the defender, and he was getting pulled down as he was trying to shoot. I thought that one was probably more of a show than the Lee Gregory one, but hey ho, you're not going to get much of their place, are you?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Let's stay on that back three for a second, and then we'll move on to talking about Christy Pym. I know there's a couple of comments coming in about the goalkeeper situation. It's a really difficult one, isn't it? We've spoken about it a couple of times. If Aidan Flint's fit and available, you obviously want him in. Obviously, you've still got Alfie Kilgore to accommodate back in there as well. Were you surprised when you saw Flint in there that we stuck with the back three?
Yes, I was, to be fair. Yeah. And I think from what, like Taras said, and like you alluded to yourself about where Dave was playing on the right, I think, I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but I think Aidan will decipher that. He'll decide where Aidan wants to play or where he's most comfortable playing. Because to be fair, when he's played before, he's played in the centre, hasn't it, with Cargill to the left of him, if you like. So, that would, and they want to accommodate Dave anyway, wherever he plays. So the best way of doing it was at his right-hand side. Because, in last year when we'd got Flint and Brunt, it was always Flint and Brunt this side, wasn't it? We've got like the Flint and like somebody who's quite pacey at the side of him, or can be quite pacey. So, I think it's probably something that, Aidan sorted out with him. And like you said, after the first 10, 15 minutes, he grew into it, didn't he? Because he was feeding Hewitt some really good passes. Yeah,
the only thing, I think it was really after they scored their goal, because if you watch back on the highlights, I know Cargill sort of misplaced his pass a little bit, but because Dave's been used to playing as that central of the three, essentially what you do as that central pin is you will either move to your left or move to your right, depending on who you need to cover. So as he's seen Cargill go up, his natural instinct is I've got to move across and cover. Well, you don't need to do that because you're playing on the right-hand side of a three, but obviously at that point, it's not quite clicked in his brain yet that's where it is. So he's ended up being slightly out of position, and unfortunately we're a little bit disjointed, and they go and score what is, to be fair, a decent goal, which Pym had very little chance in saving. But after that, he settled in quite well. But I think the important thing really with the Dave thing, and I agree with what Alan said there, Taras, in terms of Flint always being that central one. And if we're to continue playing this back three, which I think is really suiting us, and we're going to accommodate Flint in there, he does have to be the central pin, because the center of that three essentially doesn't move. That's almost like your brick wall. And then your two centre backs, your two wide centre backs, if you sort of use my fingers as I'll use pens, that's an easier thing to do. So the microphone muff is Aidan Flint. That's Aidan Flint, and then you've got Cargill, Cargill there, and you've got Dave there. You know, as the fullbacks come in, these two have got to be able to play football and play with the ball on the deck. And you know, Dave can go out and Cargill can play with the ball at feet, but Aidan Flint is not as much of a ball at feet player in terms of having the ball for a long amount of time. He's very much get it, give it, and move the fluidity across. It can, of course, ping balls left, right, and centre, but in terms of the two centre backs who will push yourselves up and drive, Dave's a really good choice for that right-sided role.
That was a very good representation. Thank you for that, Craig.
Thanks.
Well, I think as well, just given Flint's height, playing in the middle, it's probably the most likely position where you can use his height, for balls coming into the box. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play him out wide myself. So it makes sense to me to have him in the middle. Who you're going to have on either side of him, it depends if we're playing a back three, back four. But no, I definitely have him in the middle for sure.
I think go on, Al.
I'm just thinking, Craig, it'll be when, not if. When Kilgore comes back, didn't he play to the right? Wasn't that his position?
It was, but Kilgore and Flint, when they played together, played in the back four, which is a completely different kettle of fish. And even when they played together at Curzon in the FA Cup, we went back to a back four.
Yeah.
So my worry is whether Kilgore will be able to accommodate himself into a back three. I'm sure he will, but I don't know whether that's going to take a little bit of longer time. But when is the right time to bring him back in? That's the bigger question, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, as soon as he does come back in, that's when you can move Dave as and where you need him. If he can take the place of Maris, if Maris is either poorly or, is injured, whatever, if Maris comes back in, I'm sure we can fit him in somewhere. And I'm sure he will, because Dave's been the mainstay this year, so far. I would say up to yet, it'd be my player of the season.
I would be very inclined to agree as well. I think he's been a superb addition for us, especially slotting into that centre-back role so well, as we've adapted from a 4 to a 5 as well, which is really, really good. Let's talk Christy Pym then, Taras, because, of course, he did go off injured on Saturday, the last Saturday at Wrexham. And usually, when a player goes down, sometimes you're like, oh, my God, who have we got to replace him? But Mansfield don't necessarily have that because we've got such riches in the squad. And in the goalkeeping department, especially, when your first choice keeper goes down, you do tend to have that sharp intake of air. And you think, oh, God, we've got such and such coming on. But Scott Flinders is such a talent. It's like Nigel Clough said in his post-match. He's got no problem with him coming in whatsoever. And if he needs to start on Saturday against Bristol Rovers, he'll start and he'll have a superb game too. We are spoiled in the goalkeeping department.
We are, and it always kind of flies under the radar just because there's a lot of, there's a lot. You're more likely to have to chop and change with the outfield players. You look at, Maris has been kind of in and out. Bacchus has been in and out with obviously international duties. Reed, Quinn's in and out. So you just when you have such a concrete number one, in your goal, it kind of flies under the radar just because you just expect him to be there. But whenever Scott's come in, and he's had to play, he's deputized really well, and he's never really put a foot wrong. And he's had a pretty substantial career. He was at Hartlepool United for however many years, like 8 years, wasn't he? Was there number one, 200 plus appearances, and obviously Cheltenham. He's had a great career in the Football League. So we are very lucky and kind of spoiled to have him as a number two. And I watched that interview with him the other day, and just seems like a really likable guy as well. He just said, at this stage in my career, I don't need any more than what I'm kind of being given right now. And, he seems at peace with where things are at with him in the club. And, if morale is good with him and morale is good in the squad, you don't really mind anyone coming in when they need to.
I think that's the big thing, Alan, isn't it? It's all about character and mentality, because being a goalkeeper is sometimes, I think, the loneliest position in the world in terms of, there's only one shirt up for grabs. If you're a midfielder, sometimes you might play with a 3, you might play with a 4, whatever. Your chances of getting in the starting lineup are higher. If you're a goalkeeper, there's one slot. You can't play more than one goalkeeper. Although I don't know if there's anything actually in the proper rules about that. Someone might need to give that a go one day. But, he's been, like Taras alluded to, he's been a number 1 his entire career. He comes to Mansfield and he knows he's going to be a number 2. He gets a bit of a run in his first season when Christy Pym gets injured, but as soon as Pym was available again, he got dropped. We spoke about it and we were very vocal about it, at the time. Last season, he didn't play a single game, didn't start a single game in the league. Christy Pym was ever present, which I still think was a little bit wrong. I'm a little bit disappointed that Flinders didn't get at least the Barrow game and sort of get himself 90 minutes, because he deserved to, but that's by the by. But what he's done is trained hard every single day, accepted that he's not going to start every week. When he started in the Cups, he's always done a great job. He started in the 21s a lot of the time as well and been a good influence. And he's been a really good support to Christy Pym. And most importantly, Alan, he's not gone, I'm a number 2 now, so I'm going to put my feet up and not be arsed. He's worked hard to make sure that he is ready and make sure that we have got a like-for-like replacement if and when something happens.
Well, I think you can put 2 things a lot down to how good he is, because the first one was when he came in, Nigel took him to one side, and I presume before he signed, and said, you're likely to be the number 2. We've got a number 1, you are more than an able replacement. So, he knew that when he was coming in. But obviously, how the squad is and how the people are and how the all togetherness, like he said in his interview the other day, it just it brings on more confidence for him, doesn't it? Because he's going to play in all the training games. Obviously, he's got the youngsters behind him who's willing those on as well. So he's probably doing like a small bit of coaching in his own experience way. And, you've got no problem with him coming in at all, and if he, like Nigel said, he could be playing, a couple of games before Christie's fully fit and ready to come back. And who knows, if he plays well and keeps clean sheets, it's another headache for Nigel, isn't it?
Unfortunately not, Alan, because Scott Flinders could play 6 games in a row with Christy Pym injured, keep a clean sheet in every single one, score a hat-trick in every game, and he would still put Christy Pym back in, because Christy Pym is the number 1, and that's Nigel Clough, unfortunately.
That's their comment, and that's what he understands, isn't it? But he's more than an able deputy. Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely is. And the only sort of quandary, Taras, is a comment which Martin has brought up in the comments. It's who says, looks like Scott will be starting in goal on Saturday. Do we have a reserve keeper available? Now, the answer to this one is I'm not entirely sure, because I know Owen Mason, who is the 3rd choice goalkeeper, has recently gone out on loan to, I believe, Gateshead in the National League. Anthony Nunes is then the 4th choice registered, and I'm not sure whether he is also out on loan or not, Alan.
I'm not sure about that, but I would have thought, with that situation in mind, I would have thought there'd be some sort of clause in Gateshead, and to let Owen come back. I mean, I could be totally wrong. I don't know. Once you're out there, maybe you have to stay out there. But I think Nunes did go out somewhere. I don't know whether he's still out. I'm sure he went somewhere.
I thought he did. Yeah, I thought he did.
Now, the thing with that is, if we are going to bring somebody back to cover, I think personally, Taras, it would be Nunes, because Owen Mason's at the age where as a young goalkeeper, he needs to be playing football. He's had opportunities in Ireland, and we've promised him loads of moves before. And the Conference National is a good level for him to be going to play at, and to go to Gateshead, play one game, and then get recalled to sit on the bench for one game, essentially what it could be, is very, very harsh on him. It makes perfect sense for that to be Nunes. Or the other option, of course, is to not go with a recognised goalkeeper. And if worst came to the worst, Alan's laughing because he knows what I'm going to say. Step forward, Jordan Bowery.
JB9.
JB1.
JB9. Can you imagine it? Oh,
it's an interesting one because I don't know what the legalities of what the loans are. I'm sure Nunez went out. I know Mason only just recently did, but yeah, I don't know what the options even could be. You know, I mean, the other thing is like Pim might be okay. We don't know. You know, Nigel did.
It might be okay for the bench.
Yeah,
if
that's
needed,
precisely.
you know, he might
that's
just
kind of what I'm
sit there, but just in case it's needed. I mean, an 80-90% fit.
I have found the answer to the question by doing some Googling.
Okay.
Anthony Nunez was out on loan. He was on loan at Shepshed Dynamo, but they tweeted on the 11th of the 11th, 2024, that goalkeeper Anthony Nunez has returned to Mansfield Town FC. We would like to thank Mansfield Town for allowing us to sign Anthony and would like to thank him for his efforts whilst with us. A great young goalkeeper with a big future. So Nunez is, unless I've blinked and missed it and he's gone out somewhere else in the last 10 days, is back at the club and therefore will probably fill that void of sitting on the bench on Saturday if Pim's not available.
Fair enough.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Although, you know, we all like...
It's gone to the, you know, it was in the, what was it? Dominican Republic squad, was he? Dominican Republic. So, I mean, he's got something about him, not he has, if called upon.
I mean, to be honest, you know what we're all sort of sitting here and laughing about a Jordan Barry thing, but you know, we're talking about if the worst came to the worst and we couldn't sign a keeper on emergency loan, say, you know, Owen Mason's out on loan, we couldn't recall him. Nunez is unavailable for whatever reason, and then Pim and Flinders are both injured.
He would be.
Then we could sign a keeper in those circumstances, but you know, for example, if we didn't go for a keeper on the bench on Saturday, and Flinders did get injured or whatever, or something happened, he'd be the first person to volunteer, surely, Taras. And do you know what? As much as we sit here and laugh about it, he'd do a splendid job because he's just that type of person, isn't he?
He is. He seems like one of those guys that you just put him anywhere. And I mean, he's kind of proven it, hasn't he? Like in the outfield positions. But I can't say I'd want to see it, but he's not giving me any reason to doubt him, his abilities. So I guess it would make for interesting conversation, but it's not something I'd be first in line for to see. But it sounds like Nunez will be the second option on Saturday, though. But yeah, you probably want to see JB in goal probably a bit more than I do. But I don't know if that's from a comedic standpoint or.
No, I think he deserves to play there. Let's get the opinion of Clive Parkin, who's just arrived. Clive, we're talking goalkeepers. Good evening. Good to see you. Obviously, Scott Flinders potentially will be starting on Saturday with Christy Pim injured. We've figured out that Anthony Nunez is now back at the club, so will probably be the second choice with Owen Mason out on loan. But if worst came to the worst, would you be averse to a Jordan Bowery goalkeeping stint?
No, I think it's a good idea. I'm old enough to remember when you never had a goalkeeper on the bench, and if your player was injured, and I remember Birdie playing in goals once. It happens. But we're very lucky. We've got two really good goalkeepers, and therefore we shouldn't require a third or an ad hoc goalkeeper. I actually am a big fan of Flinders, as you know. I'm always disappointed that he doesn't get more game time than he does. So we're lucky. We've got a good reserve keeper.
He did superbly well at Wrexham as well, didn't he? You know what I always find funny about goalkeepers as well, Clive? If we're bringing on an outfield substitute, they spend 10, 20 minutes running up and down the touchline, getting warm. Flinders, Pim went down and the call was Flinders, you're on, and the gloves are on. He's just on. He's not warmed up, all right? He's just on. He's just sat there with his feet up.
Puts his woodbine out on the way over there. Anyway, my sister's just brought me a nice cup of Rosie Lee.
Oh, very good. Very nice. We were all comparing drinks beforehand. Alan's got a 99p coffee from Asda. Is that right, Al?
Yeah, well, just remember it's gone up to £1 now.
Inflation, it's a joke.
They put another penny on, but I'm still coping.
Taras, you had some sort of fruity tea, didn't you? And that's not a euphemism.
No, No, it is not. No, I finished it. But yeah, it was raspberry and lemon. Beautiful.
And I had a Galaxy hot chocolate, which I've got remnants of, which is now Galaxy cold chocolate. So I won't be finishing that.
Earlier
nice
today,
indeed.
Craig, I had the pleasure of having morning coffee with Tracy.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah, we saw it. We saw it.
At Ollerton Roundabout, and a cup of coffee there in various forms. It's only about 14 or 15 quid.
Yeah, that's all you need, isn't it? 14 to 15 quid.
Only.
Shall we get back to talking about Mansfield, shall we, rather than the state of coffees? I think we probably should. So yeah, let's stay on that subject of goalkeepers then for a second. Tara, as much as it would be frustrating to see Pim out for a while or however long that may be, there's every faith in Scott Flinders, and it's so refreshing to be able to say that, isn't it? It's we don't care, and we just know he'll come in and do the job.
I'm not worried at all, and I guess I pose a question to the three of you. Has there ever been a time whilst you've been supporting Mansfield that you've been so confident with a second choice goalkeeper?
Yeah.
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 Who?
And we've got. I'm trying to think of his name now. Was it not Studer? It was the other chap that was understudy to Logan. Had that injury.
Bobby Lesnick.
Yeah,
Lesnick.
He was like number one, weren't he? And then got injured. Logan, if I get this right, Logan came in, and then but Lesnick, not Elsnick, Lesnick, he was quality.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember way back in the day when one of the current directors' father was a goalkeeper for Mansfield Town. Graham Brown was a goalkeeper at the same time as Rod Arnold.
Yeah.
And so they were sharing duties, and both of them, very, very capable keepers. And I thought Graham would have had more of a career had it not been for Rod Arnold coming on the stream. And that's what happens at every club. I remember Grizovic going from Chesterfield to Liverpool. He never got lucky because Ray Clements was always on his game.
Yeah.
In those days, nobody ever got injured, So, and he went on and had a fabulous career at Coventry and 600 odd games there. So he was a player a goalkeeper of great talent, pretty ugly looking bloke, but great talent, and from Mansfield as well, by the way. But he never got a look in at the team where he deservedly got attracted to.
And Mansfield Matters apologises for Clive's use of a swear word there within his little comment when he said the C word. To answer your question, Taras, for me, I agree with Alan. I think when we had Logan and Lesnick, we had two very good goalkeepers, although it wasn't really that thing of number one and number two. Either of them could have played at any time. Other than that, no. I think going back to the conference days, Alan Marriott was always number one, and whenever he was injured or whatever, there was a worry. Shane Redmond, I think, deputised a few times and was all right, but we never really had that really like for like thing. And I think what Jody says in the comments is spot on here. Logan was a good shot stopper. However, I felt it was too slow, not mobile, and a tad heavy. And I think that comment really perhaps sums it up a little bit, because when you look at the similarities, Clive, between Christy Pym and how he goes about his goalkeeping business and Scott Flinders, it is pretty much like for like. Whereas when you look at the days of Lesnick and Logan and any other keeper duo that you name, they were two different styles of goalkeepers, and I think it's really critical to have two keepers who are very, very similar, other than stature.
Yeah, I mean, every goalkeeper has an opportunity to be a reflection of his own personality, both on the field and off. And I think there are differences between the two keepers at Mansfield. But the bottom line is, are they both capable of doing their jobs? And they are. They might do it slightly differently. I think one keeper might be better at commanding his box than another, and the other one might be slightly better at shot stopping. And I think that's bound to be the case. And as well as the most important thing from a goalkeeper at the moment, and certainly in the team that we've now got, is how they work with the back line. Because you're no longer an isolated player as a goalkeeper. You're part of that defensive machine and redistribution machine as well. That's where the game's changed, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that, Alan, is where we really are blessed in terms of our coaching structure as well, because obviously Scott Flinders is doing his badges and he's working towards a career post-football, but we've got Adam Collin, who's head of goalkeeping, who has done a superb job in not going, right, well, here are the first team goalkeepers and here are the youth team goalkeepers.
Yeah.
It's a goalkeeping department, and all the goalkeepers play the same way. They're all trained in the same way. They're all disciplined in the same way. And, that is, I think, why we are in this position where our number one is unavailable, but it doesn't matter because of the work that's been done on the training ground from Adam Collin over the last 2-3 years or so. He deserves a huge pat on the back. It doesn't get mentioned enough.
I would agree with that. I do like Adam Collin. I've got a lot of time for Adam Collin. He's a very good, very good keeper in his day. He probably still is, to be fair. And he's a very good coach. But yeah, it all brings it back down to the atmosphere in the changing rooms, and everybody being as one. You can't stress that enough at Mansfield at the moment, because there's no superstars. Everybody says it in every interview, and they can't all be wrong, can they? And it's not just saying, "Oh, let's say it because we're on an interview and we're probably doing well in the league anyway." It has its circumstance, and that's why we are where we are. And with the players that we've got, and like I said, if Scott comes in, it won't be a problem. But I just wondered, is it like a bythought, if there is anybody else who has ever donned the gloves that's in the squad at the moment, i.e. Kilgore, Maris, or anybody. I just wondered if anybody else has, done that sort of thing, if they've practiced in the net, or if ever that should arise.
Barry has definitely practiced. He's definitely had the gloves on. Barry, I'm telling you now, at the end of that season, he definitely went to the kit man and got himself a goalkeeper shirt with Barry 9 printed on the back. 100%.
It ought to be on his bucket list, didn't it?
He did.
To have some genuine minutes in a first-class game.
It's Craig's bucket.
I was just about to say, Jordan Bowery's in Craig's bucket.
Oh, if only. Not gonna. Anyway, let's go back to some of the comments. Keep them coming in. We're going to take a break in a couple of minutes. Jody says, "Wouldn't that be interesting if we dropped an outfield player for 2 goalkeepers in the box?" We were talking earlier about whether or not there is a rule thing or not, whether you could play another or if it's one of those loopholes. She also adds, JB really needs to get that position on his CV/testimonial. He'd love that. Absolutely would, wouldn't it? Kathy said, would absolutely love to see JB in goal. But it'd be brilliant for Scotty to play a few games as well. Keep your comments coming in. Have your say on your team. Anything Mansfield Town related you want to say this evening, please do get in touch via the live feed comments and have your say on your team. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the fixtures, which are coming thick and fast. We'll do podcast predictions. Plus, we'll give you a little snippet from last week's emphatic and extra long podcast with the legend that is Matt Green. First, though, the ads. You're back with the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Alongside me, Alan Wilson, Clive Parkin, and the late substitute, which is Taras as well. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We've been talking about goalkeepers, with Scott Flinders potentially having to take his place in goal on Saturday as we welcome Bristol Rovers to One Call Stadium. What will be, Taras, providing the game goes ahead, the start of a very busy period of fixtures for the Stags. We've been waiting so long for a game, and now they're all going to come thick and fast.
Yeah, they will. And, I guess that's kind of where the international break has probably aided us a little bit. We're almost at full strength anyway, but, any little niggles and stuff like that, guys presumably got a few days off. Recharge the batteries, feeling fresh.
Certainly not in this country where it was cold either. Let's just say that.
No. I don't know of many ski slopes here. But yeah, it's coming out of a prolonged break, you kind of never really know. What to expect coming out of one. You don't know if the guys are going to be raring to go, or they're going to come out a little bit off. The good thing is, I suppose it's a home game, presuming the game does go ahead. Their away record's quite poor. I don't think that they're anything to fear. So it's not a way up, but it's kind of a good game to kind of get back into things. And then obviously Wycombe's going to be a really, really big test on Tuesday. I did say Wycombe, right? Not Wigan. Yeah, Wycombe. So yeah, just bring the games on. I don't think I think we've sort of acclimatized this league well. I don't think we should be scared of anybody. You just hope that we don't pick up any injuries, in the lead up to Christmas and obviously the New Year, because it's just like you said, it's a busy time.
Now, earlier on, Clive, Alan made a point about when Mansfield have had a little bit of a break due to the international stoppages, that they find it a little bit difficult to get themselves going again. How important is it with all these games coming up? You look at the opposition we've got, Wycombe on Tuesday night, Stevenage in the FA Cup, Bolton, Huddersfield, Charlton, Rotherham, all before the Christmas period. How important is it for Nigel Clough's men to get back into action and not have that slow, slugged return?
Well, I think it's two parts to my answer. Firstly, is we shouldn't fear any of the teams you've mentioned. On our day, we can compete with anybody. It won't mean we'll beat everybody. That's unrealistic. But the biggest weakness in the whole process is that first game back, because we saw it last time. And it's been doubly damned this time because you've had the absence of competitive football. And this week, you've had the constraints are into try and train with the snow on the ground. So I don't think it's prepared as well as we should be prepared for the game on Saturday against Bristol Rovers. But who knows whether they're in the same boat? We've all had the challenges of the international break, which, by the way, I object to on every level. But there you go. So I think where we are is where we are. Just we have to do what we've had to do before is to find a way. And I think we have a team that has learned how to find a way and to deal with the adversities of circumstances. But as Tara says, a lot of our adversity is gone now because we have a much more available squad than we've had almost for 3 years.
Absolutely, we have. Now, Alan, I'm not saying this to try and be controversial or to try and spark a debate. I just think it's an interesting point of conversation because I know that there are plans in the works for this to happen. How important is it for the infrastructure of the club going forward when you take into consideration, winters are getting colder and things like that, and pitches being, frozen and snow on them for so long, etc., etc. How important is it for the infrastructure of the club going forward, especially as we look to try and push on in the next, 3 to 5 years for a championship place, to include within our training facilities some form of indoor facility? I know plans are in the works, but it'd be a real weapon in our armory, wouldn't it, to have at least one indoor pitch?
Yeah, I think it would be a really good idea because that's what he was on about in the interview, wasn't he? He was on about trying to find somewhere the day after to go indoors, where they could do some sort of training. And they did obviously the fitness up at the RH, but when they can't get on the grass, it's an ideal opportunity. That it is.
It's a bit ironic, isn't it? On Facebook today, there's pictures taken down at Loudon Grange, the prison.
Yeah.
Our community team down there, they've got a wonderful indoor.
Have they? Oh, right. Oh, say no more.
That's indoor for a reason. I don't want to judge Clive, but I've got a feeling that's indoor and behind lock and key for a reason.
Well, they seem to get on well.
I do think the point you're making, though, Craig, is a valid one. We've invested a lot in our training facility up at Radnanthwaite. What we now need to do is take it to the next stage and to have a full-size training area undercover. And if they do it right, there's no reason why it can't be used in the community and charge out to groups to use it in the evenings. But, that's not for us to say. But I think you're right. There's plans to acquire the piece of land across the way from the existing facility and to build it there.
Yeah, I do believe it's all part of the plan to improve to get to the next level of academy status as well. I noticed at the training ground that there's almost a semi-permanent marquee up there now as well, which has given a little bit of an indoor area. There are extra buildings in terms of temporary buildings with classrooms and gym facilities and things like that, all to push the academy to the next possible level.
They also need more car parking up there. That's the other thing.
That is very, very true indeed.
That's in hand. I do believe I think I can remember Steve Imers saying something about, that was in hand. That would be one of the next things happening because there's quite a few pitches that way, isn't they? There's quite a bit of land up there.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of room for development. Speaking of development and training ground, Taras, obviously we're talking about people being available for selection. A little bit of positive news this week that Rhys Oates is back on the grass in contact training.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely positive news. I don't know how effective he'll be coming back from such a long absence. I guess the same could be asked of Kilgore, but I think he's adapted quite well. But just another option to have, and it'd be interesting to see what we do with him potentially in January. Not trying to start any rumors, but obviously I don't think he's gonna take the spot of either Gregory or Evans, but nice option to have off the bench. And if I don't think he'll be fit for this weekend, but back in training is a positive, and hopefully doesn't have any setbacks, and definitely a useful asset to have.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's an interesting quandary with Rhys Oates, isn't it, Clive? Because obviously he's had 11 months out injured. Nigel Clough has looked after him in terms of, keeping him paid and things like that. And, when we were talking at the start of the season about players that would perhaps be omitted from the squad in terms of squad places, Nigel Clough was very adamant that he wanted to keep a place for Rhys Oates, which suggests that he's still in his plans.
A fully fit Rhys Oates is worth having on your squad, no question about that. But Taras is right. We don't really know what to expect post-recovery of him. And that'll materialise during the remainder of this season, I would have thought. It's how long he can stay fit. That's the other thing, because he makes some certainly strange decisions. If he was my player, I'd have one of those inflatable bodysuits made for him, so that he could bounce off things.
I like him. I like the guy. He's just very injury prone. I've got nothing bad to say about him. It's just factual. I do like him. I do rate him as a player, but
Does he fit into our current system, though, Al, as well? That's the other question, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say 110% it does. I've always liked Rhys Oates, but can you imagine when the other team's flagging, when he's had a couple of 3-4 weeks training, and getting up to something like full speed, 15 minutes of Rhys Oates off the bench, it could be carnage.
Yeah.
It's certainly he has the unique virtue of speed.
Yeah.
If he hasn't lost that in his injury, that's a virtue, and it worked very well for us for a long period of time in our League Two seasons. Whether he's good enough to do the same in League One remains to be seen.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, you've got to give him the chance, haven't you?
Absolutely, and obviously the club wants to give him a chance.
Yeah.
As the Gate says in the comments, I think Oatesy coming back would be a good match with Evans, as he can fly through the defence whilst Evans can hold up a ball and get it to him as well. It certainly just gives us another option in terms of systems, in terms of personnel. And I think the key thing, Taras, with Rhys Oates is if he can get himself fully fit and get the strength right, it's the pace which he can add into the side too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as we've been talking about Rhys, though, I've just kind of had a thought. Where does that leave Ben Waine? Because I've been really impressed with him.
Ben Wayne's a low knee.
I know. Do we try and, is he on a 6-month loan or is it full season?
Season long.
Yeah. I like him off the bench as an option. So, then obviously we've got James Gale out on loan. So, like Clive rightly says, it's I think I said he was injury prone, but he does make some strange decisions. If he can do it at this level, like Clive rightly says, completely remains to be seen. From what we know of him, but again, it was in a lower league. He is a good option to have off the bench, but I've been impressed with Wayne, and that's been in this division. So it's an interesting conundrum, probably a good problem to have, but obviously it's not up to me to make that decision.
But I mean, any club needs to have 3 strikers anyway, don't they? Otherwise,
Agreed.
They don't have that flexibility.
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, and Gregory is at the age where when he gets an injury, it might take a bit longer to come back as well. So
yeah.
Jody says, I love the way Reece Oakes plays and so thrilled that he's on his way back. He could potentially cause chaos on the break and in the box. And the Gate says, don't fall in love with your loans, Taras.
I know.
Unless it's Matt Green. We'll have that clip from the Green podcast very, very shortly indeed.
I'm being told off by the Gate.
Absolutely. You all got to listen to the Gate. But first we need to do this. So can you be the master or an embarrassing disaster? In this guessing game, there's a simple aim. It's outguess the rest and be the best. Win, lose or draw. Do you know the score? Who will be your hero to make sure you don't score zero? Yes, it may be fiction, but this is Podcast Predictions. Never get tired of that one. Right, we've of course got 2 games to get our predictions eyes over. We'll have the updated league table for you on next week's podcast. And make sure you're following us on all things social media because we will tell you who has won the week after each of the games. Right, I'm going to start with you, Alan. We're starting with Bristol Rovers first. Bristol Rovers at home. Will we win, lose or draw?
Win 3-1. Player of the game, Dave.
He's going for Dave. Clive, you're up next for Bristol Rovers.
Draw. 1-1. Dave.
Taras, soon as you're our guest.
I'm going to say a win 2-0. Will Evans.
Fantastic. And if you've been playing along with Podcast Predictions, Taras, don't forget to still enter your prediction via the link in the description. I am going to say that we are going to win 2-0, and I'm going to pick Lewis Reed as my fantasy captain. For Wickham, I'm going to say we're going to nick a 1-1 draw, and I'm going to choose... I'm going to go for Aidan Flint in that game. Alan, you can go next.
I also go 1-1, and I'm going to choose Lee Gregory.
Clive.
Lose. 0-1. Him. Sorry, Flinders.
No, you said Pim. You said Pim.
All right, okay, fair enough.
No, you can. Do you want to change it to Scott Flinders?
No. Yes,
Okay.
of course I do.
Right. Just remember, if Pim is back fit and plays at Wickham, and now you've chosen Scott Flinders, you will lose points. That's why I didn't go for either of them in the Saturday game. Taras, very quickly, Wickham.
You know what? Not to be boring here, I was going to say 1-1 as well, and I will say Dave.
And that ticks that box. If you want to play along with Podcast Predictions, make sure you use the link that is in the description. A reminder that you must do so no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kickoff on your selected games. And we'll have the winner of the week after each game and the updated monthly league table for you on next week's show. Now, last Friday night, we mentioned it earlier on, myself and Alan were privileged to be joined in an epic 2.5-hour stream by Matt Green. Loads of stories he had to tell. Let's take a little bit of a look into that episode and hear from the man himself in a story which I can only apologise for. Gary Roberts, Hosepipe. Take it away, Greenie.
Gosh, Robbo, oh my gosh. So we get in one morning. The showers aren't working in training. Robbo, he was either late or he was there before anybody at the training ground. And
Let it all out, Greenie. Let it all out. We're all friends now.
So I used to get in pretty early, you know, when the first boys in, and the change rooms were pitch black. You know, sometimes we used to train at the ground, and there's a big hose pipe on the thing, and the showers weren't turned on at this point or weren't working. So, so I walk in, you know, Robbo's bollock naked, you know, in the showers, jumps out and hi lads. He was flipping off his nut probably at a point. And he's like, the showers aren't working, lads. Showers aren't working. He's like Scouse accent. And he was there with a hose pipe, sort of like, showering it himself. And I was like, Rob, have a word, lad. What's he doing in there? Look, Robbo's flipping showering with the hose pipe in there. Like, go and have a look at Robbo. Go and have a look at Robbo. And next thing, like, he's gone really quiet. And he's got the hose pipe and he's put it up his ass.
Oh, Robbo.
And then he's there like with his legs peeled back like this. In the shower with a hose pipe, and he's like, sometimes you just gotta have a clean greenie, lad.
Oh dear.
It's like, it's stuff like that. Like, it's comedy gold. Like, all the boys, like, even the lads that were just like against that sort of stuff, like, everyone's just on their hands and knees. This lad has got a hose pipe up his ass. There's water spraying everywhere, like coming out his asshole. He's just there, like, with no teeth, going, sometimes you gotta have a wash, lad. Just, absolute rare breed, like rare breed. There's a couple there. Scott Shearer as well. He was an absolute nutbag.
I'll never tire of hearing that story about Gary Roberts. Absolutely brilliant from Matt Green. You can watch the full thing now on our YouTube, on our Facebook, or listen to it via Spotify. Really was a great episode. And that story about Scott Shearer, and it's Scott Flinders, about Scott Shearer, was a good one as well, Al. It was a great one as well. But also as well, as much as we had the funny stories and great to reminisce over all things conference and things like that as well, we had a God's sake, Clive, we had a really poignant bit in the podcast, didn't we, where Greenie really opened up, and I wasn't expecting that at all.
No, and I was open and honest and transparent, weren't he? I mean, that is Greenie. Whenever I've spoken to him, that's how he is. But it was really an open and honest, and it was heartwarming, to be fair. And it was really nice to listen to him, talking about stuff. It was a quality evening, I thought.
Yeah, it certainly was. Do go and watch that one, and hopefully more to come, Clive. Can you explain, Clive, why you've changed your name on the video version of this to Clive Parkin Anti-Hosepipe League?
Well, the whole thing was making me wince.
Oh dear!
I just think it's hosepipe abuse. Hosepipe should never be used for what it was not designed to do. And if you want an enema, there's a different way of doing it.
It's just the Gary Roberts version of enemas. So there you go. Really good listen. Do go and have a look at that, and we might have some more for you very, very soon indeed. Going to turn my attention very, very quickly to news elsewhere out there in the community. It's the EFL's week of action this week, and it's all about highlighting the work which Mansfield Town Community Trust do alongside the football club as well. And actually, in a few weeks' time, the Community Trust, or 3 members of the Community Trust, are going to be taking on an epic challenge as they're going to walk the distance from Huddersfield to Mansfield ahead of the Stags fixture with Huddersfield on in a few weeks' time. They're going to start at the John Smith Stadium on Thursday, December the 5th, and then the walk will end at One Course Stadium just in time for the Stags fixture as well. And that will mark the start of an exciting week as the Community Trust host a community takeover day on the 7th of December. The 3-day journey is going to be dedicated to raising funds for Mansfield Town Community Trust's mental health initiatives aimed at providing impactful long-term support for mental well-being in our communities. Community Trust staff members Alex, Brad and Mitchell will be leading the walk as representatives of the Trust, each committed to walking every step of the journey from Huddersfield to Mansfield. They'll be accompanied by a support van, and they'll be braving the distance and the unpredictable December weather to complete the route entirely on foot. This ambitious walk is a testament to their dedication, showing just how far they're willing to go to raise awareness and funds for mental health in the community. They're aiming to raise around £2,000 to expend the mental health programmes. The goal is ambitious, but with the help of the community, they believe it's achievable. Participants are encouraged to seek donations from friends, families, businesses to help them reach their target. And Stags fans can also donate on the day of the fixture at the ground through the bucket collections and subsequent QR codes as well. There's also a Just Giving link as well, which you can find by heading to mansfieldtownct.net, clicking on news and reading that story. And if there's any local businesses or anything out there or anyone that wants to join in the challenge, then you can do so by dropping Alex an email, alex.cartwright@mansfieldtownct.net. So good luck to the community team who are going to be taking on that challenge in a few weeks' time. And Alan, I know both you and Clive have been involved in community activities, of course, in the past. It's no secret that I've worked for them in the past as well. It's great to see what they're doing. It's great to see them, Alan, really expanding over the last couple of years as well. The club are now much more involved with them, and the community activities just keep on growing and growing and growing.
And I thought there were two excellent interviews from Paul Stokes and Alan Brooks as well. I don't know if you've managed to see them.
Yes.
About the walking football and how it started and, whatever. It really good insight, wasn't it, I thought? And good luck to Alex and the boys, Mitchell and that. Brad is the other one. I'm sure they'll make it and we'll be able to replenish their bucket when they get here.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's move on then, shall we? And, of course, have a little bit of fun. No, we're not getting Matt Green back on to have more Gary Roberts stories or indeed Scott Shearer stories. You can go and watch them on our YouTube or Facebook page or listen on Spotify. Or, as the gate says, we need a separate DVD in the club shop called Matt Green's Mansfield Adventures Shower Room Diaries. I don't think...
18 plus, surely.
Yeah, 18 plus, but also I'm not entirely sure that it's getting past the legal department. Shall we do? Shall we do?
I think the gate's become a bit unhinged.
And there it is.
And with that lovely segue, I'm going to do this.
Content loading. Selecting game. Game selected. Players stand by. What's in Craig's bucket?
Now, we've not done this one for a while, so I thought I'd bring it back with Taras joining us as a guest today and Clive hopping on the podcast as well. It's an ideal opportunity with 3 participants on screen and joining us to do a round of What's in Craig's bucket. Taras, you know how this works, right?
I've never played it before. I think I understand the premise of it, but
nobody understands the premise of it.
Of course they do. It's genius. You should wait till Christmas. Of course, what's in Craig's bucket? I have an item within my within the bucket. It could be Stags related. It's very loosely Mansfield Town related. I'll give you that. And you have got 4 questions each, which I can only answer yes or no. And from those 4 questions each and those answers, those yes or no, with a little bit of hint there or thereabouts, you've got to try and work out the item within my bucket and, of course, its relation to Mansfield Town. It's very loose relation to Mansfield Town as well. Now, Alan and Clive are both playing for their own points. Very bad, Clive. Both paying for their own points in the games thing. Now, Taras, as the other members of the crew can't be here today, Nick, Jim, and Cam, you are playing for points for all 3 of them. So if you were to win the game, you will award a point to all 3 of those. We are going to go in the following order. Alan will ask the question first, then Taras, then Mary had a little lamb. She kept it in a bucket, a.k.a. Clive Parkin. All understood?
Yes.
Here we go then. Let's find out what's in Craig's bucket.
Craig, is it edible?
No.
Craig, is it blue?
No.
Craig, does it require batteries?
No.
Craig, Would it keep you warm?
Yes, it will very much help to keep you warm.
Craig, does it have buttons?
Yes, it does have a button.
Craig, is it a toaster?
You can't ask whether it's an item, a particular item or not. Have a different question.
Craig,
Is it a toaster?
Craig, does it come in different sizes?
You can get them in different sizes, yes. Alan, third question. Two each remaining.
Is the button situated at the bottom of this article?
Only if you hold it upside down. So no, it's not.
No.
It's at the top. Taras.
Craig, would it be a suitable present?
Yes, it would be a suitable present.
Okay.
Clive.
If I had one of these items, would mine be bigger than yours?
It could be smaller, it could be of equal size. It depends whether or not you brought the same brand. And Taras has a little bit of an additional answer to your previous question. What was your previous question?
Oh, could it be given as a present?
I think it'd be a very good present for this time of year. Alan, final round of questions starts with you.
Has it got, when you say that this time of year, is it only this time of year when you would have one in your bucket? Or could you have it any other time?
You would be more inclined to use it at this particular time of year, but whenever
Needed.
whenever needed, this is a perfect item to quench.
Yeah. Ooh, to quench.
I know what it is. So I don't need another question.
Taras?
Yeah, I think I do now.
I don't have another question.
Okay, right. In that case, Clive doesn't want another question. Taras doesn't have another question. Alan Wilson, what do you think is in Craig's bucket?
A flask.
Taras, what's in Craig's bucket?
I would have said a flask as well.
Clive Parkin, what's in Craig's bucket?
A hand warmer.
Technically, it could be used as a hand warmer, but it's not a hand warmer, it's a flask! Yay! So, Alan gets a point, Cam gets a point, Jim gets a point, Nick gets a point, and they're not even here. Clive, for an opportunity, well, in fact, for all of you for an opportunity to win a bonus point, there is an extra item. There is something inside the flask. You get one guess and one guess each. No questions. What is inside the flask? Alan?
A tea bag.
Taras?
You didn't wee in it, did you?
Is that your guess?
Yes.
Clive?
A potato.
The correct answer is a sachet of hot chocolate. I gave you the clue
Oh,
earlier on in the show.
Yeah.
Can we
There
draw
you go.
out of this game?
Jeanette said hot chocolate.
Well, Jeanette's always right, but she unfortunately
she is.
doesn't win you a point. The
She's
correct
always
answer
right.
was indeed a flask. So Alan gets a point, and as does Nick, Jim, and Cam, even though they're not here. And nobody got a bonus point because they didn't guess hot chocolate in the sachet. So there you go. Right, let's bring it back to footballing matters, shall we? And end things. Clive, it's a tough run coming up. We've had a bit of a break, but we've got a prolonged number of fixtures now. How important is it for us to get Saturday's game on? Because we really don't want to restart fixtures again by going to top of the league in form Wickham, do we?
No, but it is what it is. As I said earlier, if we get the game on, there are challenges associated with that game. If it's off, we don't have those challenges. The reality is we're going to have to start up again. Do you want to start up against a team that plays free-flowing football? Or do you want to start up against a team that doesn't? I don't know. I don't know the answer to the honest question. I want there to be a game on Saturday because I'm feeling deprived.
Yeah.
How important is it for people to, if they can, Taras, tomorrow, get down to One Call Stadium and give Mez and his limited ground staff a dig out? Let's not forget as well that, as well as working on the stadium and getting the stadium pitch up and running the surrounding areas fit for purpose for fans as well, they're also having to deal with the training ground as well. So how important is it to give Mez and his team a bit of a hand if you're able to tomorrow?
Oh, it'd be a help to the ground staff. Where specifically was he asking for? Was it like surrounding areas outside the ground, or
One Call Stadium to get the snow off the covers?
Just to get them off the covers, off the pitch. Yeah.
I
mean, the benefit of the covers is they've had the snow on top of the covers because he put them down at the right time, which is acted as an insulator, so there's no danger of the ground being frozen.
No.
But it does now have to be shifted.
Yeah.
So yeah, please do go and do that if you can tomorrow. Alan, finally, of course, good opportunity to get going again against Bristol Rovers. It feels like a long time since we had a game, but it would be nice, wouldn't it, to after a break to actually start well rather than have a bit of a stutter.
Yeah, and I think I'm not being detrimental to Bristol Rovers, but I don't think they're pulling any trees up at the moment. So it might be a good team, to get back on the horse, as it were, to start and get 3 points.
Yeah,
I think my point, Alan, was that they will present us with a challenge that we
they
may find more difficult to overcome than when we're playing a team like, I presume, Wickham is. From what I've seen of Wickham, they play free-flowing football. And we respond well to that, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's it.
The other thing, of course, we're deprived of home games if this one doesn't go ahead.
Because the run of games that we've got, Wickham away, Stevenage away in the FA Cup, Bolton away. Then we'd have Huddersfield at home, which would be the only home game. Then Charlton away, and then, of course, Rotherham at home just before Christmas. But a long run of away games. But also on the bright side of that, the flip side of that, we're not that bad away from home either. So it's swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Oh, to be good. Well, hopefully, when we're here this time next week, we will have 2 games to talk about. That, however, is all we've got time for tonight. Taras, my thanks to you for joining us this evening as a late substitute. Really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me again.
Absolute pleasure. And as always, to Clive Parkin, to Alan Wilson as well, my thanks for their input this evening. And, of course, to you at home as well. That is, though, all that we've got time for on the Mansfield Matters podcast this evening. My thanks to Clive, to Alan, to Taras, and to you at home for watching and listening as well. If you missed that Matt Green episode, 2.5 hours worth, you can stagger it. It's fine. You don't have to listen to it in one go. Head to Spotify. It's there right now. It's also on YouTube. It's also on Facebook. Go and watch it because I promise you it is absolutely worth the watch. If you want to play along with podcast predictions, the link that you need is in the description. Don't forget, 1 hour and 1 minute before kickoff is the deadline for entries. And we will see you next week, hopefully, where we'll have 2 games played as the journey continues. Bristol Rovers and Wickham, the next 2. Can the Stags get 6 points? Join us next week to find out and to discuss all on the show for the fans, by the fans. This is the Mansfield Matters podcast. Good night.
Oh my God.